Hey guys, Libby here. Welcome back to the channel. It is freezer prep time. I have so much freezer prep that I have planned and that I have bought stuff for, and I'm already exhausted just thinking about it because I am 37 weeks pregnant. So it's a lot of work to be doing when my feet are already hurting, but that doesn't matter. It's 3:30 in the afternoon, which is a terrible time to start meal prepping because it's going to take me quite some time, but you just got to do what you just got to do. And you do it when you have time, and now I have time. And also, I bought a bunch of meat from Costco, and I don't want to go gross. So I have a bunch of meals planned, and I have tentatively planned the order that I want to do everything in. I've not done this before, so this is not going to be some cohesive, perfect, like we're really going to be making sure we're utilizing our time effectively. This is my first time doing this as big as it is because I've never had a freezer before. I had a freezer, but it just was not big enough. And my goal is to have a month's worth of meals. So, with that said, I have a whole bunch of chopping and prepping to do. I wrote a list of everything that I need to do, and hopefully I will be able to achieve a huge chunk of it today, but I will be doing a breakfast prep on a different day because there's no way I can get all of it done today. I'm probably not even going to get all this dinner prep done, but hopefully I can get it to a point where I can do more tomorrow, and I will include that. So this video will be all of dinner prep, and then I will do another video which will be breakfast prep, and then if I have space still in the freezer, I will do some snack prep. I purposely did not do snacks solely because it's kind of going to be wherever I can find space. And in saying that, because it's 3:30, I'm still going to have to feed my family as well. So a lot of this video is going to just be me probably doing a bit of voiceover and things. And that is because my family is home as well. So this is a real life working kitchen where people are in and out. So we're just going to do our best, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll have some lovely freezer meals. And when I have a newborn and I'm in the trenches of sleeplessness and whatever life throws at me, I will look back and be so grateful for the sacrifice that I've put in for preparing all this. So what I have got here is, you would have seen in a previous video, all of the groceries that I picked up specifically for this meal prep. I have a bunch of stuff in my cupboard as well, but I picked up stuff from Costco, and then I did some shopping as well. I also went to Abco, which is kind of a local, I say local, it's still a bit of a drive, but it does like seconds, and it also does like catering things. So I picked up 10 trays, 10 lids. I would love to use glass, but I've never done this before, so let's see if this is even worth my time, and if so, I might invest more. But this will make it really easy to pull out, pop in the fridge, let it defrost, and then pop it in the oven, because I have an oven now. So a lot of these meals too, I'm going to actually make beforehand, so essentially all they need to be done is reheated. In fact, all of them. I don't think any of them beyond like maybe the meatballs and the chicken katsu. I haven't decided if I'm going to cook them or if I'm just going to freeze them so that I don't have to worry about making sure that everything's edible. I will be writing hopefully what needs to happen to each of these so that my husband, he's the one who's doing it. He knows what he needs to do. But yeah, that's kind of the plan. Now, I should tell you everything that I have planned to make today, and it's a huge amount. So today I'm going to really focus on the chickens and getting them at a good spot, but I really want to make some butter chicken and broccoli, pasta bake, enchiladas, and chicken stroganoff. I also have some chicken katsu. So that's essentially like crumbed chicken that we put into the fridge and then can be eaten, like air fried and then eaten. So there's a lot of chicken meals. So I picked up a whole bunch of chicken from Costco, and now I need to separate and figure out what I need for each recipe and then start working on it. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. To start off, I'm going to be doing the chicken katsu, which is just essentially crumb chicken, but I use panko bread crumbs. And rather than pound it down, I know people do that with like a rolling pin and things to make it really thin. I'm just cutting these breasts in half. Originally, I was just going to do 2 chicken breasts, so I just have 4 of the cutlets, but after I go through everything, I think I end up doing 6 of them. So I'm waddling because there's a baby right in my hips and making it very uncomfortable, but the first thing I really should be doing is allocating what chicken breast is going into what meal. And when I first started, I thought, oh, I have so much chicken. But as I moved on and kept cutting, I realized I don't think I had enough. I wish I had bought a little bit more, because then I could have made more servings of the same dishes. There were a couple that missed out, but that's totally fine. So to start off with, I'm going to do the butter chicken. And I'm just dicing up some chicken breast because the butter chicken needs to sit and marinate for a while. I think it's a couple hours, up to 24 hours. And I had plans that I would do the marinade, I would do a bunch of chicken work today, and then I would come back to that butter chicken, and I don't end up doing that. So it was good to have it sitting in the fridge for forever because it's a marinade. It just made the chicken all the better. But the reason I'm using chicken breast is because it was just cheaper at Costco. So you can use thighs for some of these recipes, and I will link all the recipes below, but this just made my life a little bit easier if I was just using the chicken breast, which was the cheapest. So I'm starting with this marinade. I'm using a coconut yogurt, so there's no dairy in it. My husband's dairy-free, and it's just easier. And honestly, this is a really nice coconut yogurt. It's a natural one. Tastes yum. I will link this recipe below. I am not following it to a T. I'm kind of getting inspired by it, which is kind of how I cook. Now, I've cooked butter chicken a whole bunch before, so it's familiar to me. And I thought about originally just marinating the chicken and then putting that in the freezer itself, and then it can be cooked afterwards. But in the end, I thought it'd just be easier if I have everything pretty much cooked as much as I can. I think only a few meals aren't cooked fully, but this butter chicken is. And there's so many spices in this. And when I was cooking it later on, it just smelled amazing. So there's things like cumin, garam masala, turmeric. I put some lemon juice in there. Just a whole bunch. Like I said, it'll be listed below so you can make it. Onion powder and garlic powder, and I just mix that up, and then I throw all of that chicken breast that I've diced into this bowl, and I let it sit in the fridge. And like I said, fully intended to do it today, but because of how much I end up doing today, I just let this sit in the fridge for a while, which was a really good move. If you can let this sit for as long as possible, that would be my suggestion. So once I do that, I just end up dicing the rest of the chicken, and then I allocate which chicken is going into which dish. Now, I did end up making dinner this night that I don't show because I was just too pooped by the end of it to really focus on getting the camera work going for it. So some of this chicken does go for a dinner that I made that night. I think it was just a stir fry, something really, really simple. But all of it is being diced. So now I'm turning my attention to the chicken katsu after I have diced all that chicken up. And I don't have a recipe for this. I just kind of do it how I feel is best. And I made this in a previous video for the Japanese curry. So I just flour it, and then I put it in an egg wash, which is a mixture of eggs and a little bit of water. And then I put it in the panko breadcrumbs, which I really push down and make sure that I cover as much of that egg in the panko, because the more you do that, the crunchier of a chicken breast you get. So these are really easy because I just end up putting them in a bag, and they can be air fried for 20 minutes and they're ready to go. So I put them on a tray to keep them flat, and that's how I end up freezing them too, but I will show that in a little bit. So yeah, I just put them on a tray, freeze them flat, flash freeze them, and then once they're frozen solid, I pack them away in a bag, and that's the chicken katsu done, which is really, really easy. So next I'm just getting the chicken ready for the chicken and broccoli. So I'm putting a little bit of seasoning on, salt, pepper, a little bit of rosemary, mixing that all in just before I put it onto the stove, because I think you should always season your chicken before you do anything like this with it. I just get my cast iron with a little bit of olive oil, and this is my fancy new stove. So this is one of the first times I use it. So just trying to get used to it, but putting my chicken on, I didn't want it to burn, but you really should let it get more color. I did not let it get enough color. And as I'm cooking it, I'm realizing that there's not enough chicken for how much I want to do. So I add some more, and then I get some water boiling on the stove because I am going to steam some broccoli for my chicken and broccoli. I love broccoli. This is one of my favorite meals. And so I just cut it nice and big because this gets baked in the oven. It is okay to have the big pieces of broccoli because they're nice and soft and they mix in really well. So I wait for that broccoli to get green, and then I start to put them actually in the trays. So I wanted to make 3. That was the original plan, but I did not cut enough chicken or provide enough chicken for this recipe. And so I started putting it just in 2. This is not enough broccoli for both of them, but I knew that because I have a small steamer. So this is a new steamer, so I'm still learning how much I can put in and all that. But I put the broccoli that I've already cut, and then I do end up cutting another bit of broccoli, and that's perfect amount. I think in the end it fills the tray up, and broccoli steams so fast and gets soft really quick, but it's the best way to eat broccoli is to steam it. So I put broccoli down first, and it is like half of this meal already done, which is fantastic. This is enough broccoli. I think that I could have maybe pushed it into 3 had I had enough chicken, but this will be great because then I don't have to worry about adding a vegetable to this dish when it comes time to actually heat it up and eat it. So the chicken is done. Like I said, didn't get enough color and I didn't get enough chicken, so I think it is fine for 2 meals, but I really would have preferred to do 3. And that's probably going to be the theme of tonight. I didn't account for enough ingredients, but that's totally fine. I'm just going to let these sit and cool to get started on the next thing. So I'm just seasoning this chicken right in here. And this is like salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, just your very basic seasonings because that's easy. And I mix it up and add a little bit of olive oil as well. And then I pop that onto the stove. So I also get my pasta going. I bought 2 packs of pasta and I only end up using 1, but I think that's just because I ended up doing 2 instead of 3, which is totally fine. And I use penne because I just think penne is one of the best ones. So I let that chicken get nice and brown, and while that's going on, I'm doing other things in the background, but just checking on it every so often, making sure that the noodles don't stick and that I don't burn my chicken on my new stovetop. So I cut some onions, and this is where I made a mistake because I was like, I'm not slicing all these onions. So I get my food processor out, and for some reason I use the shredding, and I don't know why I did that, but I did. This is my first mistake. It's just, it was a silly idea, but there was no way I was going to be chopping all of these onions. And I opened it and I realized this is not what I wanted. So I dump it all out, and then I put in my little shredding attachment, do a little bit, and I think, oh, this is great. Let me add the rest of it, which is the second terrible idea of the night I had, because the bottom is getting chopped, but the top is not. So again, I have to dump out the top part and then just focus on the bottom and just do it in batches, which I should have done from the beginning. But like I said, this is my first time doing meal prep like this, so we'll get better as we get along. Pasta is done. I drain that, and then I just pop it on top of the vegetables and the chicken. So this will cool down, and I will make the sauce later on, but it was just really easy to get these small components, and it felt like a big win to have these already sitting and waiting. The onions I do in 2 batches, and I end up putting it in this little silver bowl, which was such a great idea that I did this because I used this throughout the 2 days of cooking that I end up doing, and having all those onions just easily accessible was so easy. So we're back to this chicken, and I am looking at it going, this is nowhere near enough chicken for the chicken stroganoff. I also soaked some of my dehydrated mushrooms. So these are porcini and morels. I got a really great deal on them. And so to rehydrate them, I just put them in a little bit of warm water, and then I chop them up because nobody wants a giant porcini when they're eating their chicken stroganoff. But this is one of my favorite things to have on hand is dehydrated mushrooms. I tend to let my other mushrooms kind of get forgotten in the fridge, and this way I only ever take out what I need when I need it. So I pop this in a bowl, and with that mushroom broth I essentially made, I kind of deglazed the bottom of this pan. And once it was sufficiently deglazed, I added in some onions. I'm not really trying to get too much color on them because I knew the mushroom broth would give them like a false color, but I'm just trying to get them nice and soft before I put in the rest of my ingredients here. So I put in the mushrooms because you do need to make sure that you cook your mushrooms. And then I end up adding in the flour. So this is to thicken it up to make our stroganoff sauce essentially. Then I add in some beef broth that I made from the beef stock powder. I let that kind of simmer for a little bit before I start mixing it in. And you're just trying to thicken the sauce because that's what the flour is doing. And
It's tasty. I was tasting it as I went, and I was really pleased with it. I don't think I've made this version of stroganoff before, so I'm really pleased. And then I just add some dairy-free sour cream and mix that all up, and it was definitely delicious. Probably one of my favorite meals, which makes me a little bit bummed that I only got one tray out of it. I didn't cook enough chicken. I didn't have enough chicken, and I prioritized my chicken and broccoli over the actual stroganoff. And I tried. I'm like, oh, maybe I can get away with it. But the more I stared at it, the more I thought, no, this is silly. So I just added it all together. And in saying that, these are really deep dishes. So even though it looks like I'll get like one serving from it, it'll be totally fine. I'll probably get like 2 nights worth of dinner from just this one tray. So let that sit down and cool down for a bit.
Okay, so it's been a little bit of time since I stopped working. I had to make dinner for everybody, then the bath and bed routine, so that just takes time to get the boys settled, but everybody's in bed now that needs to be, and I can finish doing what I need to do. Now, I am not going to be able to finish everything that I wanted today, which is fine. I kind of expected that. So tomorrow I've got more that I'm going to do because I've got the beef side of things that I want to get finished. And so I'm going to do that, but tonight the goal is to bag up the chicken that I put in the freezer, the katsu, make sure I label all that with instructions on how to cook it. The chicken stroganoff needs to be going in. It's ready to go. I just need to write the instructions. A little bit bummed. I wanted 2 of those, but I could only get enough chicken for 1. I thought I had a little bit more chicken than I do. And I do actually have some extra chicken in the fridge that's already cooked from a rotisserie that we did the other day, but I might save some of that for tomorrow save that for the enchiladas actually. So gonna do the stroganoff, put that away, finish off the chicken and broccoli. I've got the chicken, I've got the broccoli, I've got the noodles. I just need to make that sauce to go over the top. I might start that first because I will let that cool before I pop it in the freezer. And then I need to work on my enchiladas. Now the butter chicken said on the recipe that the best amount of time to let that marinate is actually 24 hours. The minimum was 3. So I was going to try and push it, but because I'm so tired and I have a messy kitchen and I have plans to actually keep going tomorrow, I think I'm going to hold off on that one till tomorrow. So not that big a deal because you guys will see that video. This is the chicken side of it today, and tomorrow will be more of the beef side. But I've got a little bit more time tomorrow than I did today. So hopefully that will make things a little bit easier for me. And I'm not doing anything strenuous tomorrow. I did a lot of walking today, and walking really tires me out this far along in my pregnancy. So far so good. I did 6 chicken katsu. So that's like 6 individual servings. That chicken stroganoff is probably about 6 as well. And then I've got 2 of the pasta bakes, the chicken and broccoli, and then the enchiladas. And we'll see how many enchiladas I can get out of that. So still a little bit to go, but I'm hopeful that I can finish in the next 2 hours. I don't know, but the only way to make sure that happens is to start working. So let's just get to it. I don't know if this is smart, but I'm actually gonna try and do 2 of my roux at the same time. So I need one for a sauce, essentially, for my chicken and broccoli, which is more of a cheese style white sauce. And then I need one for my enchilada sauce. So we're gonna see if we can do it at the same time and if that is smart or not. But I told you I'm getting tired and I'm on a time crunch. So let's get this going.
Yeah, newsflash, this was a terrible idea to do both of them at the same time. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking, but I did melt the butter at the same time, so I didn't ruin anything, but yeah, there was no way I was going to be able to do 2 roux simultaneously, not at this time of night. So once I had the butter melted for the white sauce, I then add my flour, and I let that cook down because you want the butter to utilize their fat and cook the flour so that it can thicken nicely. I use a dairy-free butter, so it is a little bit different. And then I also add some yeast flakes because, like I said, it's dairy-free. So yeast flakes are essentially like Parmesan cheese. And I actually really love yeast flakes and having them on hand. So even if we weren't dairy-free, I think definitely you should always have it on hand. Now for seasoning, I just added some beef stock because I didn't really have any chicken stock beyond what you can see there, but I was saving that for the enchilada sauce. So I'm just adding in some water, and you can see it thickening, and there's probably a better way to do this, but like I said, late at night, I'm exhausted, my feet are hurting, I'm very tired, so I just start mixing it up. Now, this is specifically for the chicken and broccoli. I've made this roux like a million times before, so this is very familiar for my family. I add in a whole bunch of different seasonings here. Like you can see me getting Old Bay, which is one of my favorites. I really love Old Bay, and I think it goes well with the chicken and broccoli. And it gives it a really nice color. And then I add some dairy-free cream just to make it lovely and creamy. So I'm not going to add any more of the cream in. If I need a liquid, I'm just going to add some water. But to prevent it from burning, I keep stirring it until it gets to a really nice consistency, and I feel like I have enough for both. So like I said, water, that just stops it from getting too thick. And again, yeast flakes. I did taste it a couple of times just to make sure that everything was good. I did add a bunch of seasoning as I went. So I added some salt and pepper and a little bit of oregano, which made it actually quite lovely. So mixed that all in. And then once it was ready to go, I poured it right over the pasta and chicken. Oh, and I cover it with cheese. This is the dairy-free cheese. I didn't use a heap of it because I know I can always add more later on. Now we turn to the enchilada sauce. So the butter is melted and I got that boiling again. And then I added in some flour just to make it into a proper roux. And I am following a recipe for this because I've never actually made enchilada sauce like this before. I usually make a much simpler version, but when I saw this recipe online, I was like, this sounds delicious. So I decided to give it a go. And I also add in some enchilada seasoning. So you actually make like a seasoning to go with it. And then I add in my passata. I mix that all in and just trying to make sure that my heat is good. And then I add in my chicken stock as well. And I pretty much use all that chicken stock in the end, which is great. Now the rest of the seasoning goes onto this chicken. That is going to be just browned on the stovetop. I just wanted to mix it in at first. I do let it get a little bit more color, as you can see, and move things around. But once it's finished cooking, I pop it into a bowl, and then I sweat the onions and some of the capsicum because that is going to go into our filling with our chicken. And over here, everything's cooled down, so I put a lid on the stroganoff, and then I end up putting a lid on the pasta dishes. And then since these are cool, they just go into the freezer. I was thinking about wrapping them, but I don't end up doing that because I think they actually seal up really nicely, and they're really easy to read. So I'm happy with that. And they just go sit on a shelf, which is very satisfying to have 3 meals all ready to go. Now I start adding in some corn to my enchilada mix and some refried beans, which I'm not really familiar with refried beans, but I put the whole can in, and it's a very different texture to what I'm used to working with. And I add a little bit of water as well, because that's what the recipe called for. Probably should have used a bigger pan, but this is the one I had out. And like I said, late at night, I'm not doing anything. So I do end up adding more refried beans to this mixture just to thicken it up a bit. Now the chicken katsu is frozen solid, so I package that up just by putting it simply in a bag, and then I get all the air out that I can, and this goes in the freezer with these other meals.
So it is nearly 10 o'clock tonight, and I really need that enchilada stuff to cool down, because from the recipe it says the best way to put it for the freezer, have everything really cool, and then do it while it's cold. That way the tortillas don't absorb all the sauce. So what I'm going to do is call it quits for tonight. My camera died partway through, so what I did with the enchilada sauce mixture, the enchilada filling, I added it to the chicken. I added some quinoa, and I added another can of refried beans because I just felt like it was too thick, too soupy, too watery still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that sit overnight, let it get completely cooled, and then tomorrow I am going to assemble them first thing, do the butter chicken, and then work on the next part. So I'm exhausted, but I really feel accomplished because I got quite a bit done. So once I finish all of these different meals and everything's in the freezer and frozen, I'll take it all out to show you guys everything that I have done. But I at least have a couple of meals worth already, and I feel like a huge accomplishment considering never done this before. I've never done this big of a project when it comes to freezer cooking. So really hopeful that tomorrow goes even better than today, but I'm calling it quits. I am going to run the dishwasher. I still have dirty dishes in my sink, but they can wait until tomorrow. And then I will meet up with you tomorrow and we will start working on the rest of it. And hopefully I'll feel more refreshed.
So it's a little bit earlier the next day. I actually have to work this day, which is why I'm working a little bit earlier, but it's only half day. So I can get this done and then I will start working on the rest of the meals in the afternoon. But this enchilada sauce actually turned out really, really great. So I cooled it down in the fridge overnight, and by adding that bit of quinoa to it, I think it really thickened up nicely, but also it's just another nutrition to add to the meal itself, which is always a good idea. I do experiment a little bit with how I want the enchiladas to look. I'm not going for anything authentic here because I live in Australia. Like, we're not even close to Mexico to begin with. So we just kind of make it the best that we can. And I wrap it in these kind of burrito style, which I end up not loving the most. Like, it makes it fit into the pan really well, but I think I just prefer to roll them up. So even though I pack them in like this, for that tray, I do end up later on just doing the roll. Now I ended up getting 8 per tray, so 16 all up, which for my family is plenty of food. This is like 2 nights worth or like a lunch and a dinner, which is great. So I don't even have to think about it. I can just add like sour cream, add some cheese, add some guacamole, whatever I've got in hand, lettuce, it's totally fine. So this is one that I wished actually that I had more of as well. Even though 2 trays is still pretty good, I feel like if I had any more, that would have been great to do. So hopefully this tastes delicious and reheats really well, because this will definitely be one that I will make again in the future. So once this is done, I get out the enchilada sauce and I pour it on. The recipe said that if everything is really cool, then the tortillas shouldn't absorb the sauce as much, so it will be really nice to freeze. And I just throw it all on, and then I get some shredded cheese. I didn't have a lot of shredded cheese left of the dairy-free one, so rather than shred more cheese, because my food processor was in the dishwasher and I just didn't feel like getting it out, I just sliced up some cheese and put it on the other one. I figure by the time we get to that enchilada, there will be shredded cheese somewhere in my house that we can just sprinkle on, and it's going to be no big deal. So even though it looks a little bit funny, I think it'll turn out totally fine. And then since it's all cool, it's just easy. Put the lid on and make sure everything is sealed. I do wipe away the food because I don't really want food sticking on everything.
Today is a new day. I'm feeling better than I did last night. I was totally exhausted. Yesterday was a really big day. So I pushed myself a little bit too hard physically. I did not realize how much the standing and cooking was going to take out of me. I know it would take a while to get things done, but I didn't realize how much it would take for me. So we're going to take it a little slower today, slow down my plans even further than what I had previously. So if this stretches into a 3-day marathon, that's okay. It'll get done. And I'm just going to be a little bit calmer, be more cool with it. This morning I woke up pretty early. Relatively early because I needed to sleep, but I woke up early enough that I could finish off these enchiladas. I popped them into the freezer. I haven't wrapped everything properly. I will do that probably all together, but I want it to freeze nice and solid. I'm finding that the trays that I bought, the aluminium ones, they are a little bit flimsy, especially when you've got hot food in them. And so when they cool, they're a little bit easier, but they're still a bit not the best. They'll work fine for what I need them for. It's a disposable thing, but definitely think that freezing them as soon as possible and then doing the whole wrap. So freezing them just by themselves, not stacking them, is the way to go. So we're doing that with the enchiladas at the moment. I need to finish off the curry that I didn't get to, the Japanese curry, because I got all the katsu chicken crumbed bits in the freezer. Fantastic. But I need to do the Japanese curry in individual ones, and I'll show you me doing that. And then I also need to do the butter chicken. Now, I'm not including rice in this because rice is something that My husband and I are more than capable of just whipping up together. I also have naan bread I found in the freezer, which is great. So that will be wrapped up with it as well. And then once I've finished all of that from yesterday, I will turn to today's stuff, which I really want to get started on the mince. I'm not sure if I'll get to the cottage pie today. I might save that for later on. I want to do the spaghetti sauce and I want to do the hamburger patties. So we're going to see what we get to today, but I'm not pushing myself. We're going to keep it slow. I wish that my kitchen had been in a little bit earlier so that I could have done this maybe like 35 weeks for future reference. I think the 2 weeks, I'm really feeling it. The difference is quite stark, but what I need to do first is to probably clean up my kitchen. Last night I ran my dishwasher, which was great, but I still have a sink full of dirty dishes, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to need some of those containers to do my cooking for today. So we're going to clean this up, and then we are going to map out our plan, and then we're going to get started. So let's not waste any time. It is just past 12, so we're already in the afternoon, but that's okay. We're taking it slow, and we're not going to go as late as we did last night. So let's get started.
Working with a clean kitchen is probably the most ideal. If I could go back in time, I would probably have cleared my entire benches. I've never had this much bench space before, so I felt incredibly blessed. But due to just the amount of food that I was working with, I think having like pretty much clean countertops would have been ideal. So if I do this in the future, which I plan on doing it, definitely how I want to go. So I just unpacked the dishwasher, which is great because many of the containers that I needed to clean last night, I needed for this day. And I also make sure to pack the sink, everything in the sink, so that I can actually use it because I end up needing to use the sink quite a bit today as well. So my lovely husband does the dishes this night for me instead of me, which is fantastic. But at least I did manage to get another load ready to go. And I do actually run this while I am doing my cooking. So first off, I'm just washing potatoes. I generally don't buy the dirty potatoes, not for any particular reason, just because it's easier, but I have this giant sink now, so it's really easy to scrub potatoes, and I just get them nice and clean so that I can do them for my cottage pie, which I wasn't originally planning on doing, but I really, really wanted them. So I peel them. This is also going for the Japanese curry. So some of this is going for the curry, some of this is going for the mashed potato, and I separate them accordingly, but I usually don't take this step of peeling because I actually kind of like the rustic that comes with peels and potatoes. And also, if there's a chance to slip in sweet potato, then I always try to do that. So this sweet potato is specific for the mash. And so I just chop it up, and because it's being mashed, I just do a rough cut. I don't need to make sure everything's even. I know that if it's even, it cooks even, but for mash, it's just getting all muddled together anyway. And I just let it sit on the stovetop for a while, and I have this going with some of the potatoes because, like I said, I saved some of the potatoes for the Japanese curry, which requires it. So really easy to just throw it together. I actually love mash. It's one of my favorite things to eat. And the mash goes towards the cottage pie, and the rest of the potatoes go elsewhere. And also I decide, let me start peeling and prepping some of the other vegetables that I'm going to put through the food processor. The reason I did the food processor was just, I wanted to add just a little bit of extra nutrients to everything. So carrots were needed for the Japanese curry, and I did spend the time to peel them. But I also shredded some of these carrots up as well, which was nice. And I just used this blue bowl as kind of my food scraps. And this does end up going to the chicken. So I chop off the ends of the carrots, pop those into the bowl, and then I also get some zucchini out that I had in my fridge that needed to be used up. So I decided to shred that as well, which was such a good idea. Now in this pot, this is where I'm going to do my Japanese curry. So we're starting with some onions, and then I'm going to pop in some potato and carrot. I know I just did sweet potato, but this is carrot because that's what the recipe calls for. And I am just following whatever's on the pack. And you've got to let this kind of cook for a while before you add in the water, and then you let that get to like a bit of like a simmer so that you can soften all of those vegetables. And while that's happening, I start shredding everything. And I get the shredder right this time, unlike the day before. So carrots, zucchini, I do a little bit of onion because I just didn't think that I had enough, which I think I did have plenty, but I had an extra onion that just needed to be used up because it was going a little bit soft in my bag and I didn't really want to lose any of my produce. So I just throw this all together and I have this sitting in the bowl and I mix it up, and this goes into like my chili, and I use it in another night's dinner as well. So it was just really handy to have these vegetables already chopped and ready to go. Now this Japanese curry, like I said, super simple. I make sure my potatoes are soft before I add in this Japanese cube thing. This, like I said, this is just like a pre-made curry mix. It's so good. It's one of our favorites, but I specifically make this meal for my husband. He loves this dish, and I know that a couple of people have already reached out to me saying, hey, we'd literally like to make some meals for you and the babies here. And my husband hates when people like have to cater to him because he hates limiting them. So I made sure that I had some food that he could just pull out while we eat whatever people bring to us. Originally, I was going to go for 4, but I think this, because I was trying to go for real hearty, and if there's extras and leftovers, then not a big deal, because this will be served with rice that will have to be made up, and also the chicken katsu. So now I'm turning my time to the butter chicken, and I start by browning half of it, which I was originally going to do half the chicken and then make all of the butter chicken all up and then put that into a pan and then do the next batch, which is why I'm putting the cream in and why I add in the passata. But I realized that that's just wasting my time. I should have just done all of it at once, even if I had to batch cook my chicken. So I end up actually getting the cast iron going and just adding it in. Now the recipe said don't add all the marinade in because you add the marinade to the sauce once the chicken is all cooked. So I didn't just dump it. I just made sure I had all the chicken, and then once that was all cooked from the pan, I added it together and I doubled my cream and I doubled my passata and I added in the rest of that marinade and just kind of let that cook together for a little bit. Once it was done, I ladled it up. Now, originally I thought, oh, it actually feels like it can only do one, but then I realized that these dishes are really deep, so I end up splitting it between the two. And you've got to remember, I'm going to add naan bread to this, and I'm also going to add some rice. So even though it looks like half the tray is filled, this is plenty of food for me and my family for a meal and a half at least. And I put it on a tray because the bottoms are really flimsy. Now it's time to package up these Japanese curry, which is really simple instructions. And I pop on these lids, and then these can just go into the freezer. Nice and easy. The little ones were really fun to do because they're really satisfying when they get slipped into the freezer. It's just feels like you've really done a lot of work. So I'm going to make cottage pie, which is one of my favorite meals to make, actually. I'm just browning the mince, and then once that's done, I add in a bunch of vegetables. So I chopped up some beans that I had in the fridge, and then I used a pre-frozen mix and put that in. I'm not trying to cook anything, really. I'm just trying to get it to the same temperature. I add in some beef broth, mix that all up, and then I add in baked beans, which I don't know if that's traditional at all, but it's what I love. My mom used to do it with baked beans, and I think it's really yum. So I add in this, and then I add in a whole bunch of seasonings as well. I've got to mix it all in first, and then I add in gravy powder, which I don't know if this is traditional either, but this is how I make it. I don't have a recipe. I just kind of go with my heart and see what I feel, taste it and things, and add like salt and pepper and all that, and then I individually portion it out. So I actually made 5 servings of this, but I only put 4 in the freezer, and I saved 1 for dinner that night because the thought of cottage pie just sounded so delicious. And I was like, if I'm going to go to all this effort, I'm going to make sure that I have a really decent dinner. So I just top everything up with that sweet potato and normal potato mash, and I do put like actual butter that I found in my fridge. So this dish is specifically not for my husband, who cannot eat dairy. This one goes just to me and the kids, although I don't think the kids love this as much as I do, so I'm not going to waste it on them. This is just something for me. Maybe if my husband makes something and I can have that for my own dinner. Now I'm just doing the buttered chicken. This is all cooled down now. I'm just adding the lids with all of the instructions onto it before I pop them into the freezer for them. And I did struggle a little bit with the lids until I figured out I needed to kind of pinch it a little bit more, and then everything just was perfectly fine. So these went into the freezer with the rest of it. And so did the cottage pie once this had finished cooling down, because this one took a little bit because I took it pretty much straight from the stove, and same with the potatoes. So once it cooled down, I make sure to wipe everything too, because I really don't want food stuck odd on lids and stuff, especially since I stack them. I don't want them to get stuck together. So these got packaged up. Again, I'm telling you, these little packaging is so satisfying to do. I think that there might be a little bit more fun in it, so it might be something that I end up doing in the future, just adding these little ones. Next up, I'm starting to work on my chili. So I have chopped up the green capsicum, which I told you would come in handy, and so with this zucchini and shredded vegetable mix that I made, I add it to both my spaghetti and to my chili, and I think that's such a great move. I actually end up adding more to the spaghetti than what you see here, because everybody should have vegetable added to their pasta. And then I cook these two dishes. Now, what's great about these two is that they just sit on the stovetop. Once you really get them going and the vegetables have cooked for a while, and you add the meat and then you add all the seasonings and stuff, the longer it sits on the stove, the better it tastes. So after it's at a good temp and I'm happy with the vegetables softened, I add in some mince, and I am trying to push this down because I want the mince to brown a bit, but I'm not really worried. Chili's fine. Same with the spaghetti. It doesn't brown, which means it doesn't get the maximum amount of flavor, but there's a lot of seasonings and stuff that go into this, so I'm not really too worried. While that's going on, I noticed that the time is getting close to dinner for my family, so I was going to make burgers for everyone. I mean, I'm having the cottage pie. They get to have the burgers. So I separate the rest of my mince out into these little bowls, and I decide to try something a bit different, which is to flatten them. Now, I know a lot of people flatten them once they're already in the pan, but I thought, no, I think I can do it beforehand. And I just tested out with 2 baking paper and just squeeze it down and wash my hands a whole bunch because raw meat, yuck. But I make it vaguely into the shape of a burger, but try to keep it really flat. This will make it really fast for cooking, but also for defrosting as well. And my son, for some reason, is struggling with hamburgers because the burgers, he just feel are too big, so they fall apart. So I tried this, and it turned out he could eat them really easy, and there were no tears, which is, he loves burgers, but he always ends up crying. So I'm glad that this worked out well. So I make 3 for dinner for them, and then the rest of them I put away in the freezer. So I just keep going back to the chili and to the spaghetti, just making sure that everything gets cooked. Once I get the spaghetti to a good point, I'm just going to add in, and the chili actually, I'm just going to add in a whole bunch of extra stuff. So for the spaghetti, I add, actually the same for the spaghetti and the chili, I add in very similar seasonings. So onion powder, garlic powder, even though they've both got onion and garlic in them. I add a little bit of oregano into the pasta, a little bit of Italian seasonings. I think that's a real big difference. And for the chili, I'm adding in like a bit of cumin, smoked paprika. I also added a little bit of chili. I didn't really want to go too hard because my kids will eat it. And then I put in some passata into the spaghetti. Actually, I think I put about 1.5 jars and a little bit of water mixed in with some beef stock as well, just to give that some nice flavor. A little bit of tomato paste, which you don't see, but I do end up adding that. And then for the chili, I add in all of those beans that I had previously. So the black beans, the kidney beans, the cannelloni beans. I add in a can of corn as well. I should have used a bigger pot, but this is what I had, and I was unwilling to get anything bigger because I felt it would have been too big then. So I also still have to add in a can of tomatoes. I just used diced tomatoes into this. I don't like my chili too runny, so it's kind of like as much as I'm willing to do. And I think chili is just really forgiving. You can add pretty much like all the cans you want and let it sit for a while, and it will taste delicious. So it's later in the night because I have let the chili cool down, and I am going to ladle it into this tray. The original plan was actually to put them all into individual ones, but I just had so much chili that I figured I'll do one family size one, and then I'll get two small ones that can either be eaten by my husband or myself. And just to make this meal, it would be simple as just getting like some cornbread going, which my husband and I both know how to make, or even just sour cream and cheese, which we will add later on after they're done. And then I package up my hamburgers. So I actually wrapped them in baking paper just to make it really easy for them to be pulled out in case we want to do just like maybe 1 or 2 burgers for the kids. Get all the air out and then pop that into the freezer. And there's another meal pretty much done. Next is the spaghetti sauce. I did think about putting this in a tray, but realized that a bag would be so much easier. I can flatten it, and then when I reheat it, I'll make the pasta, and then I'll just pop this bag into the pasta pot rather than putting it in the oven. So I just scoop it up. I did let this cool because I didn't really want the bags to melt. Not that I think that they would, but you never know. So just trying to be safe here. And then I flatten them out and just try and get as much air as I can out. Probably should have used a straw because I think I could have gotten more out, but look, I made sure that they were clean at the top so that I wasn't having any spaghetti sauce, and I feel like that's a win. So they did really great, actually. Having them flat, so much easier to store in my freezer. Put the lids on everything with the instructions, and I did notice as I was going along that my instructions got more concise as time went on, but I am shattered by this point, and I've made a whole heap of freezer meals, and I am so dang proud of what I managed to accomplish in 2 days, considering how very pregnant I am. And then I flatten these and freeze them like this to make it easy. That's going to be me done for the night. I am pooped. I calculated how many serves that approximately I have done, noting too that my family and our eating habits will be different to your family and your eating habits, but I think it's about 83 servings, which is fantastic considering, if I really break it down, I just need 70 servings for the entire month. That's a month's worth. And yes, there'll be repeats, but who cares? That is so much food I put in my freezer. It is so satisfying to see that shelf. Was it hard work? Yes. Physically exhausting, but I managed to do it. So today, to give you a recap of what I ended up doing, which I am so impressed with myself, I started with the enchiladas. I managed to get them all boxed up, put in the freezer. I made the Japanese curry. I made the butter chicken finally. Then I did all my meat, like my mince things, so ground beef, depending on what part of the world you live in. So I did my spaghetti sauce, my chili, my cottage pie, and I know there's something else. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. Oh, and the hamburgers, I flattened them down. I'm very glad because I ended up making 3 of them for dinner tonight for everybody else. They loved them. They really liked the flat burger, which I know people press them down, but I thought if I flattened them to begin with, and they shrunk up perfectly for the size of the burger rolls that I usually buy. So yeah, all in all, great. There are still a couple of meals that I really want to make, but first of all, I'm exhausted. I'm very tired. So yes, still want to do some breakfast prep. Still going to do a little bit of dinner prep, but it's more going to be like I'm already making something. Let me just make double and freeze it. I feel like that's probably, I'm not going to do another big cooking like this. This is too much. If I have freezer space, which I need to go through my freezer and pull things out that I want to use, then I might do some snacks, just things like muffins and some muesli bars that I make that I like to freeze. The only reason is because school continues to go on and I want to make sure I have snacks for my family so that when the baby comes, we're going to do okay. But I am so pleased with myself. If you liked this content, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Please make sure to give a thumbs up. Please write down a comment. If there is something that your family really loves, I'd love to hear it. Something that's amazing in the freezer. Or if you see a way for me to improve, please let me know. Because I actually enjoyed this, even though I am so exhausted from it. And knowing that physically maybe
in a couple of months, maybe once we settle a bit more with the new baby, then it might be a little bit easier for me physically. Like I don't have to worry about my swelling feet or contractions happening if I push myself too hard, which happened last night. That would be so helpful. But I really appreciate you watching this video. Make sure you like it, make sure you're subscribed, do all the stuff. It really is helpful for me, and it's really nice to know that people are interested in watching the content, because I really enjoy making it. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Hopefully the next video will be the breakfast prep. We'll see, but it's going to be great. So don't miss out on that video, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.